Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It is Thursday, December 12th, 2024, and the topic today is, I'll probably call it preliminary sketching, because that's what I'll be doing. But before we begin, welcome back if you're returning, welcome if you're new. I sketch and post every day, and I use timers to stay focused and build a sketching habit. I'm going to use a 10-minute timer today, starting now. And I'll put a link to yesterday's video, which showed the process of coming up with the sketch, which is still in the preliminary stage, but it's moving towards just being a sketch. And you can see like this area is starting to just become like a sketch basically, but there's still a lot of preliminary stuff which you have to be patient about and gradually develop. And so that's what I'll do in this video, and I may or may not do any more videos on this particular sketch. I mean, once I cover what I need to, then really it's just about sketching, like finishing it. But there's a lot of different things that I don't mind sharing. So for example, the tools I'm using. So in yesterday's video, I had initially just kind of abstractly, randomly put down some lines to begin with, and then I started constructing figures using like a light marker. So one thing that I can go over is, so using this light marker, so there's different values, so maybe I could go over that first. So for example, the white of the paper is a value, and so part of this I'm just kind of working on the composition. So I'll just draw a little border. But like the white of the paper is a value, and then the marker itself, this color, which is the lightest like of the gray tone, also has a value. So if I were to crosshatch or sketch, which is what this is, it'll look like this. It'll have that, and then like the white, and then if you crosshatch or just use closer lines, whichever, but basically you'll get that. And then if you kind of fill it in, you'll get this look. So it's not going to be black, it'll be gray, but like light. So with that in mind, I'm going to use it to kind of push like back areas that if I feel like it. So that's one way to do that. So you can use it to push back areas. And as far as how to do that, I mean, that's kind of a different topic because it has to do with the pattern, the value pattern. Like I wouldn't just, unless it looks like that, but you can see kind of like what it does is pushing back like and allowing you to sculpt the silhouette basically. So that's one approach to it as far as like the preliminary. And yeah, you have to just be kind of gradual, like be patient, and just kind of, if you see something, so for example, and I kind of like to work on it at the same time, but like have maybe an area that kind of lets me see like how detailed I can get with it. And so sometimes this light gray color can be used for the armor. I'm going to give these guys armor. And that would be considered kind of like the local value of it, meaning the armor is dark. but you don't necessarily have to make it the same value as like this area, which I'll talk about. So the next thing is the the more detailed looking but also still gray is this. It's like a felt tip gray. So when you have this, you might start to draw stuff. So for example, when I first did this, these figures, so yesterday's video was about drawing figures like interacting, doing stuff together, like in a group, and making it look good, like interacting. So at this point, so when I did this, I wasn't sure what these figures were going to be doing, so I'm going to go with some kind of dance thing, because it's I mean, I'm always going to do like fantasy or dark fantasy world building, because that's what I'm working on, and so I get to not only work on drawing but also world build. But so I'm going to sketch out these figures right here, but I'm going to use this gray pen and still keep it pretty loose. But because I'm starting to develop the picture, the sketch, then I can kind of tell like what look I'm going for. So for example, if I'm not that sure just yet, then I'm just going to stick with like this gray right here. But like if I start to need to see like what's going on a little bit more, then I'll go in with like the black pen, which is like another felt tip pen, and start to put in some more of the shape that I'm looking for. But there's a few things to keep in mind here. Is that, one, I'm still approaching it like a sketch. I don't really know what these characters look like, so that's part of it. It's character design, it's world building, it's concept art. So part of it is that, meaning it's okay if it looks sketchy, because I don't really know like what the characters look like, so it's fine to use it that way, like as a sketch. The other thing is to develop the sketch kind of at the same time. It doesn't all have to be like have the same values or the same level of detail. Part of character design is the silhouette. Like sometimes that's like the main thing that you're going for. So you're wanting to figure out the style of the world. So I'm just gonna accentuate the silhouette. If I start to see the costume, if I start to see the like the characters, and they can be kind of rough, because they could be major characters, they could be minor characters, they could just be like part of the concept art, kind of like that. And you'll notice that if you go in with like the black pen, it'll start to take over like the shape, the drawing. It'll push the other stuff to the back. And so just to kind of go over like the process, like this initially for like it'll help you to, so once I did this, it'll help you to like sculpt the silhouette. And then this will continue to refine the drawing, but at the same time also not compete with other areas, because wherever you go in with like the black ink, it's going to stand out. So it basically gives you different layers, if you will, if you were using like if you were doing this digitally. It just helps you to have layers, because you can just keep layering on top of it. And this is just one approach that I'm playing with. I don't really do it like this, but it's not bad because it does really help you with the tones. That's 10 minutes. I'll start another 10-minute timer, and maybe that'll be it because I'm feeling a little sick, if you can tell by my voice. So the other thing is you could do like a value scale here if you want to see. So you'll notice that if I go like this, that's one way of seeing the values there. And I won't do it with this, but this would be like the darkest one. And again, you may not need it for everywhere, but it makes for a good sketch to further develop. But it gives you some leeway, like that. You can go back in and refine the shapes more. And then you can decide, for example, like, do you want to refine the silhouette with this? With this gray? Or like with the lighter? I prefer to use the finer point here. So yeah, I just wanted to share a process. A lot of times this kind of thing, like I would do it digitally, but it's kind of nice to do it traditionally. But when I was working on illustrations, I would just, if I needed to do the preliminary sketch, I mean, you could just do this digitally. But if I have this, then I would just scan it in and paint it up digitally. The other thing I wanted to work on was like, so a lot of these ideas, I just came up with it because I kind of like have a world building idea anyway, but like I didn't really know what it was going to look like. So this is all from imagination. And I was actually browsing a little bit, like, just to kind of get ideas, and I actually prefer to do it from imagination, but like it's also fun to do studies from reference. But sometimes the most original idea is going to come from just the line work. So if you look at yesterday's video, like this pose, the angle of her face was from the scribbles that I had put down. It just made it look like her head was tilted in that direction. So that's what I mean. That just came from like the scribbles, which if you can pull it off and make it look good, then it just has a lot of, I think, originality to it. But yeah, like this hand. So this guy is kind of a monster, some kind of like half monster. I mean, I'm not gonna like, so this is world building, but it isn't exactly the characters or like the plot, but like kind of is, because that's why it's concept art, I guess. But like none of this is canonical, but they are ideas. So part of this is like, so this would be kind of a good example. Like I could just outline everything, but there's a few things to think about there that I'm thinking about. Is one, I don't necessarily want everything to be outlined in black ink. I also don't necessarily want everything to be competing with each other, like with focus. And then the other thing is, I don't necessarily, like, I can't erase that. So I may not necessarily know what that should look like. So these are just some things to keep in mind. So with that in mind, I'm going to draw in more of the, so part of this is just drawing and kind of implying that he has claws and stuff. But like, since I can't erase, then I'm not going to be able to like maybe make it look exactly how I want it to look, but like maybe I don't have to make it look like that. So those are just some things. And then the other thing is, it may be better just to keep it kind of vague. It's kind of the same with like her hair. When I was developing this sketch, I mean, I wasn't sure exactly the process that I was going to use. And so there's some areas where like I won't be able to erase like the dark black line. So I'm just going to go with it, but like maybe not make this area as dark. It's just some thoughts. And then I would just bring everything to kind of this level. And then if you were to detail it even more, which is to say like this, and in fact, you could go in with an even smaller pen if necessary, and it would make it look like a more finished sketch or an illustration that has like a sketchy style to it. It just depends on what you want to use it for. But definitely be patient about it and build it up gradually, and just kind of work on the parts that are kind of obvious. So for example, like this, I may not shade that in. So I might turn that into something else or shade it differently. And then sometimes, so once you start to have like a more finished sketch, when you do look at reference, it'll pretty much look like your sketch, because you pretty much have like the design and the characters and everything. So there might be like some areas where, like here, where it could be kind of mysterious. Maybe they're at a masked ball. So it could be a little mysterious, because this is, in a way, this is like a mood board for yourself. It doesn't mean that this has to happen, because I'm writing some books, so it doesn't mean like this has to happen in the books. But I mean, I'm writing a dark fantasy novel, so there's already some things that it's kind of like a movie poster, and so I do like that kind of artwork, so like just illustrations, and so it kind of has that vibe. So in a movie poster, it's kind of the same thing where you don't really know exactly, but there's interesting characters, but like you don't know the exact plot or anything like that. So yeah, that's basically, so notice like I developed this a little bit more, but I'm not going to force it. Like if I don't really see exactly like what's going on, I'll just kind of leave that. And it's better to have it be sketchy than to go in and then like create work for yourself, which is kind of what happened here, just because I wasn't sure how to, like I said, I usually would do this digitally. So it kind of helped me. Like with this one, I kind of have to, with this character, I kind of have to just go with like this dark color because I already have it on here. But that doesn't mean I have to make all of it like that. So yeah, that's really, so I'm noticing, for example, like these figures, like that's kind of, to me, sort of like the focal point, really. And I'll do some more down here, but like I don't really want to work on this right now, because maybe a lot of what I'll do here around them is going to dictate, because the white of the paper also makes it stand out. So some of this stuff might be more in the background, but yeah, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with, for example, if these are knights, which they are, then to look up some pictures of knights and stuff. It's part of the fun, but like it has a lot more of my ideas in it by doing it this way. So yeah, hopefully that was interesting or helpful. And before I sign off, I want to thank you for joining me for our daily sketching routine. If you like these videos, please support the channel. I appreciate it. And until next time, keep on sketching.